The Bible has given us two very important laws. It tells us, "Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy strength, and with all thy mind, and thy neighbor as thyself." One time a man asked Jesus, "Who is my neighbor?" Jesus answered by telling the man a parable, a story, called the Good Samaritan. You can read it in the book of Luke in the Bible. Here is how the Good Samaritan might be told today. Once upon a time, a certain man was traveling on the steep and lonely, rocky road from Jerusalem to Jericho. He was trudging along, minding his own business, when suddenly a band of wicked thieves rushed out and pounced on him. They knocked him down and beat him. They tore his good clothes, grabbed his money, and ran away. The man was so badly hurt that he couldn't even get up from the ground. The poor fellow just lay helpless in the middle of the road for a long time. After a while, a priest from the temple in Jerusalem came tramping along that steep and lonely, rocky road. He glanced at the man lying there, and without so much as slowing down, he tramped right past. "You certainly see some sad things on the road," he murmured, and he hurried on his way. Pretty soon a Levite, a helper in the temple, came marching along that steep and lonely, rocky road. He said, looking ahead. "What's that big lump of something in the middle of the road? Could it be a rock? Or an animal?" He ran up eagerly to see what it was. When he saw that the lump of something was a man lying hurt, he clucked sadly. "What a pity." Then he looked more closely and said, "Isn't he a sorry sight?" "He doesn't look like anyone I know. I wonder if he goes to the temple at Jerusalem." Then, with never a backward glance, he hurried on his way. Not long after that, a Samaritan came plodding along the steep and lonely rocky road on a donkey. Now the Samaritans were called foreigners. The Samaritans weren't like the priest and the Levite and the poor man lying on the steep and lonely rocky road. The Samaritans didn't look the way they did, or speak the way they did. And the Samaritans didn't worship in the temple at Jerusalem. People thought the Samaritans weren't as good as other people. In fact, almost everybody thought the Samaritans were enemies. But the minute this Samaritan saw that poor fellow lying on the ground, he jumped off his donkey and hurried to help him. He cleaned the man's wounds and covered them carefully. Then he lifted him gently onto the donkey's back and took the man to an inn where he took care of him. The next day, the Samaritan gave the innkeeper some money. "I can't stay here any longer," he said. "I really have to go on to Jericho today. Take this money. Use what you need to take good care of our friend." "And if you have to spend more than this, well, I'll repay you on my way back to Jerusalem." "Oh, don't you worry," said the innkeeper. "I'll take good care of our friend." So, the Samaritan climbed up happily on his donkey, and he started off once more on the steep and lonely rocky road to Jericho. That was the end of the parable that Jesus told. Then Jesus asked the man who wanted to know who was a neighbor, "Which now of these three do you think was the neighbor to the man who fell among thieves?" "Oh, the neighbor was the Samaritan," the man answered. "He helped the poor fellow and was kind to him." "That's right," Jesus said. "Go, and do thou likewise." This is the story of Noah and the ark and the rainbow. It's in the Bible, in the book of Genesis, for everyone to read. You know, God always brings good to people. But in the days of Noah, many bad things were happening. That's because most people didn't pay any attention to God. But Noah listened to God. He was fair to everyone, and he acted just the way he ought to act. The Bible says Noah walked with God. Noah had a wife and 3 sons. His sons were Shem and Ham and Japheth, and they had wives too. One day, God told Noah, "Bad things are happening on the earth. They'll have to stop. Because so many people are being wicked, there's going to be a big flood. It's going to rain 40 days and 40 nights. It's going to rain so much that water will cover the whole earth. Every wicked thing will be washed away by the water. But you, Noah, have listened to me. You've been good. Now do exactly what I tell you to do. Then you and your family will be safe." Noah did exactly what God told him to do. He built an enormous ark. He built 3 closed-in decks on the ark, a lower deck, a middle deck, and an upper deck. He made rooms inside. He made a door in the side and put a window in the ark. He put a roof on top. He covered the inside and the outside with tar to keep out water. When he had finished all the work, Noah took his wife and his sons, Shem and Ham and Japheth, and their wives into the ark. God told Noah, "Take a male and female of every kind of animal and bird into the ark, too, and a male and female of every kind of reptile." Noah did. He took apes and badgers and bears and boars, hippos and foxes and goats and sheep, leopards and lions and moles and mice, hyenas and horses and jackals and pigs, camels and cattle and weasels and wolves, deer and elephants, dogs and cats. He took eagles and sparrows and ravens and owls, vultures and chickens and swallows and bats, swans and pelicans and peacocks and storks, ostriches, falcons and pigeons and doves. He took lizards and turtles and snakes and worms, caterpillars, ants and bees and beetles and flies and locusts and fleas. And many more. And Noah took some of every kind of food, so not a single creature in the ark would be hungry. Well, not many days after Noah finished getting all the creatures and food into the ark, it began to rain. It rained, and it rained, and it rained, and it rained, just as God said it would. First, the water covered the ground. Then it covered the trees and the little hills. Then it crept up the mountains until it covered the tops of even the highest mountains. It rained 40 days and 40 nights. Everything was covered with water. But the ark floated easily and smoothly on top of the water. And Noah and his family and all the creatures inside the ark were dry and snug and safe. Even after the rain stopped, the water covered the earth for months. Then the wind began to blow, and little by little, the water went down. At last, the ark came to rest on the mountain of Ararat. Soon after that, Noah looked out the window, and he could see the tops of the mountains. The water kept going down and down and down. So pretty soon Noah opened the window and sent out a dove. The dove flew around for a little while. When she couldn't find a dry place to perch, she came back to the ark. Noah put out his hand and took her in. A week later, Noah sent out the dove again. This time she was gone all day. When she came back to the ark that evening, she held a fresh olive branch in her beak. Said Noah. The water must be almost gone. At least it isn't higher than the olive trees anymore. He waited still another week and sent the dove out again. This time, the dove didn't come back. So Noah knew she had found a dry place to rest. Now, Noah lifted up the roof of the ark and looked all around. The earth was dry again. All right, Noah, God said. You can come out of the ark now, and bring with you your wife and your sons and their wives, and all those creatures you took into the ark. So Noah and his wife and his sons and their wives and all the walking, creeping, crawling, flying creatures that had been living in the ark all those months came out of the ark, safe and sound. Out came the apes and badgers and bears and boars, hippos and foxes and goats and sheep, leopards and lions and moles and mice, hyenas and horses and jackals and pigs, camels and cattle and weasels and wolves, deer and elephants, dogs and cats. Out came the eagles and sparrows and ravens and owls, vultures and chickens and swallows and bats, swans and pelicans, peacocks and storks, ostriches, falcons and pigeons and doves. Out came the lizards and turtles and snakes and worms, caterpillars and ants and bees and beetles, and flies and locusts and fleas, and many more. And God told Noah, whenever you see a rainbow in the sky, remember that I'm always keeping you safe. Now, we don't have to wait for a rainbow to help us remember, do we? We can always know that listening to God and walking with God keeps us safe, just as it kept Noah and his family and all the animals in the ark safe and sound. Moses led the children of Israel out of bondage in Egypt to the land God promised them and gave them the 10 Commandments. This is his story. It's in the Bible, in the Old Testament. Pharaoh, the ruler of Egypt, didn't like the Hebrews, the children of Israel. They weren't Egyptians, and he made them work very hard at tasks like making bricks by hand and building walls and roads. He forgot that long before, another Pharaoh had invited them to live in Egypt because Joseph, a Hebrew, had saved the Egyptians during a terrible famine. To keep their numbers from growing, Pharaoh ordered, "Throw every newborn Hebrew boy into the river Nile." About that time, a Hebrew woman bore a son. She hid him at home for 3 months. Then she wove a snug little ark of reeds and made it watertight with clay and tar. She laid her baby in the tiny boat and set it among the reeds by the water's edge. Pharaoh's daughter came down to the river to bathe and saw the ark. She sent one of her maids to get it. "Oh," Pharaoh's daughter said softly when she opened it, "this is a Hebrew child." The baby's sister, Miriam, who was nearby watching, ran up to her. "Shall I call a Hebrew woman to take care of the baby for you?" she asked. When Pharaoh's daughter said yes, Miriam brought her own mother. So the baby lived with Miriam, his brother Aaron, and his own parents. When he was older, his mother took him to the king's palace to Pharaoh's daughter. She adopted him and named him Moses. Although Moses grew up as an Egyptian prince, he never forgot that he was a Hebrew, one of the children of Israel. One day, Moses saw an Egyptian boss beating a Hebrew worker. He was furious and killed the Egyptian. The next day, Moses saw 2 Hebrews fighting. "Why are you hitting your brother?" he asked the one who had started it. "Who made you a judge over us?" the man snarled. "Will you kill me as you did that Egyptian?" People knew what Moses had done. Because Pharaoh would have had him killed for this, Moses fled from Egypt to the desert land of Midian. One day, 7 sisters drove their father's sheep to a well there to get water. As soon as they filled the troughs, some rough shepherds chased them away to take the water for their own animals. Moses saw what was happening and chased away the shepherds. Then he helped the young women water their sheep. Moses married Zipporah, one of the sisters, and stayed in Midian. He became a shepherd, leading the sheep to find food and water and watching over them. One day, he led the sheep across the desert to graze near Mount Sinai, which also had the name Mount Horeb. There, he noticed a bush burning, but it never burned up. As he went over to see it better, a voice called, "Moses, Moses." "Here I am," Moses answered. "I am the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob," said the voice. "My people are having a hard time in Egypt. I'm going to bring them out of Egypt into a rich land, flowing with milk and honey. I want you to lead them." Moses was astonished. "Who am I to lead them?" he asked. "Certainly I will be with you," God answered. "They'll ask who sent me," Moses said anxiously. "They'll ask me your name." "Tell them I am, the God of their fathers, sent you," God said. "Well, they'll never believe me," Moses declared. "What's that in your hand?" God asked. "It's my shepherd's rod," Moses answered. "Throw it on the ground," God told him. The minute Moses threw down his rod, it became a snake, and Moses ran from it. "Now, pick it up by the tail," God said. As scary as this was, Moses did what God told him, and the snake turned into a shepherd's rod again. God gave Moses another sign of his power. He healed his hand, which had suddenly become diseased. "Show my people these signs," God said. "They will believe that God sent you." "But I'm not a very good talker," Moses murmured. "Well, who gives people speech?" God asked. "Don't I? I'll tell you what to say." Moses still held back. "Please send somebody else," he begged. "Your brother Aaron speaks well," God said. "He'll go with you. I'll tell you what to say, and he'll say it for you. And take your shepherd's rod with you, so that you can do signs that my people will believe." So Moses went back to Egypt, and Aaron came out to meet him. They gathered together all the leaders of the children of Israel, and Aaron told them everything God had told Moses. Aaron showed the signs God had given, too. Then the children of Israel believed that God had sent Moses to lead them out of Egypt. Now there was a new Pharaoh. When Moses and Aaron told him God wanted the Hebrews to leave Egypt, he roared, "I don't know any such God, and I won't let these people go." It wasn't until many bad things happened to the Egyptians that Pharaoh agreed to let the Hebrews go free. They were hardly out of sight when he changed his mind. "Why ever did we let those workers go?" he cried. Pharaoh chased the Hebrews with 600 chariots. He caught up with them at the Red Sea. God had led them there with a pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night. The Hebrews were terrified as the Egyptians rushed toward them. They cried out to God, and they said to Moses, "Why didn't you let us alone? We'd rather be slaves in Egypt than die here." "Don't be afraid," Moses said. "Stay right here and see how God will take care of you. You'll never see the Egyptians again." Then God told Moses to lift up his rod and stretch out his hand over the sea. Moses didn't ask why. He did what God said. All that night, God made a strong east wind blow back the waters of the sea until the bottom was like dry land. The children of Israel walked easily across to the other side. The Egyptians raced after them, but when they reached the middle of the sea, God told Moses to stretch out his hand again. Then the waters flowed back and covered the Egyptians. The children of Israel were so happy that they sang a song of thanksgiving to God. "The Lord is my strength and song," they sang. "He is my deliverer." Moses' sister Miriam took up a tambourine. The women followed her with tambourines and danced for joy while she sang, "Sing to the Lord, for he is victorious." Now the people gladly followed Moses into the wilderness until they got hungry. "We should have stayed in Egypt," they howled. "At least we had enough to eat there. We'll die of hunger here." "They'll have plenty to eat," God promised Moses. That night, flocks of quail flew into the camp. So there was meat. And in the morning, tiny round white things covered the ground. They tasted like wafers made with honey. The Hebrews said, "It is manna." Moses said, "God has given us bread." Moses led his people on, knowing that God was caring for them. They had manna to eat and water to drink. Sometimes the water gushed out of bare rocks. But whenever anything went wrong, the Hebrews still doubted God and blamed Moses. No matter what happened, Moses talked with God and did what God told him to do. After many days in the wilderness, they came to Mount Sinai, where Moses had seen the burning bush. They made camp at the foot of the mountain. The children of Israel needed to understand not only their closeness to God, but also how to obey him and how to get along with each other. So, God called Moses to the top of Mount Sinai and said, "I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of Egypt, out of slavery." Then God gave Moses 10 laws for the children of Israel. Some of them told how people should behave toward God. The others told how people should behave toward one another. "Don't believe that there is any God except me," was the first law. Some of the others were, "Don't make idols. Don't make wrong use of God's name. Love your father and mother. Don't kill. Don't steal. Don't tell lies about people. And don't want what doesn't belong to you." God talked with Moses on the mountaintop many days. He gave Moses 2 stone tablets with the 10 laws carved on them to take back to the children of Israel. The people in camp were upset because Moses was gone so long. "We don't know what has happened to Moses," they told Aaron. "You must make a god to lead us now." They gave Aaron their gold jewelry, and he made a golden calf out of it for them to worship instead of worshiping God. When Moses returned and saw them worshiping the golden calf, he was so angry that they weren't following God, he smashed the stone tablets he'd brought to them. He destroyed the golden calf, too. God said to Moses, "Cut 2 more tablets like those you broke, and go back up to the top of Mount Sinai. I shall give you my laws again." When Moses came back to the camp this time, even though he had been gone many days, the people were waiting eagerly for him. They took the tablets happily. They made a beautiful box for them and a tent to keep the box in. The tablets reminded them that God was with them. Listening to God, Moses led them on through the wilderness. Just as when they left Egypt, God sent a pillar of cloud to guide them by day, a pillar of fire by night. Finally, they reached Kadesh with its springs of fresh water. Beyond these hills is the land God promised us, Moses said. God told Moses to send men to explore the land. He sent Caleb and Joshua and 10 others. They returned and said that the land was a wonderful place with plenty of good food. But its people are big and strong, and its cities are huge and walled. "We can take that land," Caleb said fearlessly. "No, we can't," others shouted. "Those men are giants. Just looking at them made us feel like grasshoppers." Once again, the people doubted God and wailed, "Let's choose a leader and go back to Egypt." "Listen to us," Caleb and Joshua begged. "The land is good. Trust God. He'll help us." But the people wouldn't listen. They were still frightened. And because they were afraid to follow God, they had to return to the wilderness. Moses led them through the wilderness for many weary years. It wasn't an easy journey. Sometimes they traveled far out of the way to avoid enemies. The country they passed through was unfriendly, and sometimes they had to fight hard battles. Finally, they came again to the land God had promised. Only Moses, Caleb, Joshua, and the children of those who came out of Egypt with them were left. God took Moses to the top of Mount Nebo. "Look," he said, "that good land, stretching from the river Jordan to the great sea, is Canaan, the land I promised to the children of Israel." So, listening to God, Moses led his people to the land God had promised them. And Moses gave them the laws God wanted them to obey, the 10 Commandments. Moses told the children of Israel, "Tell your children that our people were slaves in Egypt. God brought us out of Egypt into the land he promised us. And God told us that loving him and obeying his laws would bring us great good and keep us happy and safe."